What's up, everyone? I'm Andrew Peters. This is a TrackMan. This is a TrackMan interface. These are the pitches that TrackMan can read, and this is good baseball. Now, of the 10 pitches that TrackMan can track and accurately capture data for, what if I told you only need to worry about 2 or 3 of those? As the great Bruce Lee once said, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. In baseball terms, be really good at 2 to 3 things instead of just okay at 4 or more. I understand the glitz and glam behind being able to say you can throw Rick Vaughn's The Eliminator from Major League 2.
Call it the Eliminator. It's a combination screwball and split finger.
Or Austin Schultz's redheaded stepchild from TikTok, thinking that it could keep the hitter off balance, or wanting to say you have something absolutely disgusting in your arsenal that no one else can throw. However, what do the numbers actually tell you? Here at Good Baseball, we found out so you don't have to. In the 2025 Major League Baseball season, there were 873 total pitchers. Out of the 873 total pitchers, 61 of them were position players, so that leaves us with 812 actual pitchers that had thrown a pitch in the 2025 season. Out of those 812 pitchers, we compiled lists of both starters and relievers and annotated their arsenals thanks to the likes of Baseball Savant. On the Baseball Savant website, we utilized 2 tabs within its domain. First and foremost being the Pitch Arsenal tab, particularly for the reason that you can use the shuffle method to randomly generate pitchers. There are also tabs to select left-handed pitchers, right-handed pitchers in the season, and as aforementioned, we're utilizing the 2025 season in its entirety. Within the rest of the tab, you can look at the pitcher and what they throw. Not only can you look at what pitches they throw, but you could look at the frequency at which they are used as well. The other tab we utilized was their 2025 pitcher visualization report. This allowed us to compare and contrast data from the Pitch Arsenal page to make sure that things match. It also shows a whole bunch of other unique factors, one of those being how many pitches a pitcher had thrown in the 2025 season. If a pitcher had thrown less than 100 pitches in the season, we automatically forfeited them in our data pool. We only utilize pitchers from the shuffle method with over 100 pitches thrown in the 2025 season. Now, some things to know about these lists that we compiled. We separated the starters from the relievers, and for a little bit more specificity and flavor, we went ahead and annotated that 75% of pitchers in baseball, both starters and relievers, are right-handed. So in our lists from starters and relievers, which have 40 pitchers each at a proper 3-to-1 ratio, or 30-to-10 total pitchers, we have 30 right-handed pitchers, or 75% right-handed pitchers, and 10 left-handed pitchers, or 25% left-handed pitchers. Now, the number 40 that we have come up with is not by accident. French mathematician Abraham de Moivre developed the central limit theorem in 1733. The central limit theorem states that, according to Libre text, regardless of the original population distribution, the sampling distribution of the sample mean will approach a normal distribution as the sample size increases, typically when the sample is 30 or more. In other words, what this means is when you have a sample of 30 or more, that is enough to declare normalization for data distribution. Data distribution is generally seen in the empirical bell curve that you find in inferential statistics, where you see that the mean generally averages out to right around 68%, or the majority of people in said data capture, or in that average mean area of 68%. Now, getting back into the actual baseball stuff, now that the mathematics talk is set aside. Utilizing Baseball Savant and our randomly generated lists of 30 right-handed pitchers and 10 left-handed pitchers, 40 total, we were able to note that the average starter throws anywhere from 3 to 9 pitches, averaging out to roughly 5.4 pitches. Well, for the sake of saying that there's no such thing as half a pitch or just over half or just under half a pitch, it's rounded up to a nice, easy 6 pitches. Sure, being able to throw 6 pitches is pretty great and amazing, but here's what it actually doesn't tell us. Utilizing this bar graph that we've made, showcasing starter pitch arsenal and pitch usage, you can see there is a steep drop-off from pitch 1 to pitch 2 at 12.8%, and then pitch 2 to pitch 3 at 9.2%. and then naturally the rest of the arsenal continues to take a tick down and drop off. Naturally, every pitcher is going to rely primarily on their best pitch, or as you can see here, P1, noted for pitch 1, seeing that that is a pitch that probably put them on the spot, most likely got them drafted and even to the big leagues, and then allowed them to have success at said big league level. Well, everyone knows you have to have at least some sort of secondary offering to at least give the hitter a different look from time to time. So they will have a more commonly used secondary offering, whether you be an east-west guy, a north-south guy, or an add-subtract kind of guy. But what does that say about pitch 3? For any reason that anybody would use pitch 3, there are a few reasons that we can surmise. Reason number 1 being, you're a starter, you need to be able to have something to throw to both righties and lefties, simply because of the fact that you're going to see both of them at least multiple times through the lineup. Another reason why a starter would throw a third pitch to righties or to lefties is simply because of the fact that they want that tri-planar movement where you have some sort of fastball, something to match the fastball and give you a different look, whether it goes arm side, or give you a different look, whether it goes glove side. Bottom line, the best in the world may have up to 9 pitches on very scarce occasions. However, most pitches hardly get used after pitch 4 as a starter. Now that we're done looking at the starters, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our reliever group. Based on the data, anywhere from 2 to 6 pitches per reliever's arsenal, and based on our gathered data, it gives us about 3.85 pitches per pitcher. But again, simply based on the fact that there's no such thing as half a pitch or 3/4 of a pitch or 1/4 of a pitch, we're going to go ahead and round up and give it a nice round 4 pitches per relief pitcher's arsenal. Getting back to the data here, I want to note that there's a steeper drop-off from a pitch-to-pitch usage for relievers than there are for the starters. I want to go ahead and take a look at the fact that the reliever throws their primary offering more than the starter throws their primary offering, and their secondary offering actually more closely resembles that of a starter's primary offering. You can see that their tertiary offering, or their third pitch, is used half as much as their secondary offering on average, which means it's used about 1/3 as much as their primary offering on average. Not to mention their fourth pitch being used almost a negligible amount of the time.
Interestingly enough, in our data, we noticed that some of our samples allegedly utilize the pitch in their arsenals as little as 1% of the time, and sometimes even less. It got us to question why that may be. Our team concluded that there are roughly 3 reasons why these incredibly niche instances may happen. Reason 1 being good baseball's very own Ian Kroll. During the development of this project, I sat down with Ian and talked about his best season and what his arsenal looked like. He said that it was in 2017 where he appeared in 51 games, tallied 49 total innings as a reliever, and threw 2 pitches 72% of the time, despite having an arsenal of 5 pitches. What were those 2 pitches? A fastball and a cutter. But wait, there is no cutter on his baseball savant profile. Why is that? Again, when talking about this sort of thing, we concluded that there are roughly 3 reasons why. First one being a simple labeling error. Therefore, data misinterpretation is a very real thing and can skew pitch arsenal usage.
I can also say with relative certainty that anyone that's thrown a baseball competitively, you're well aware that sometimes there are these accidental manipulations of said baseball, whether it's putting too much pressure on a seam or accidentally getting underneath a ball, which gives it a completely different breaking profile. For instance, if I'm going to throw a cutter that's generally in that 89 to 91 mile an hour range as Coach Kroll's, and I accidentally get a little too much pressure and get a little too around it, and it drops down to about 86 miles an hour, some people might view that as a slider. This happens all the time, even at the major league level, a little bit more consistently than you probably would think. This means that the eye that is looking at the pitch can perceive it as a completely different pitch in its entirety, which can then skew the data. When we're looking at this data of major league pitchers, the last aspect that can skew data, whether it's significantly or moderately, it's important to note that you see this happening all the time. The transition from starter to reliever or reliever to starter, where when starters throw very clearly 2 more pitches in their arsenal on average than relievers, something's going to change because there are less innings and less total pitches going into everything. And when you're practicing, it simply just does not make sense to practice what you're hardly going to use or utilize instead of practicing what you're going to be using consistently. When it comes to total arsenal usage as well, it's nice to note that there are general genetic predispositions to particular pitches that your body and arm will allow you to throw at effective to elite levels. What I mean by that is whether or not your arm angle is a little bit more over the top, 3/4, sidearm, etc., as well as with pronation and supination biases at release. At the end of the day, it goes without saying that the pitchers that we have done samples on are some of the greatest, if not the greatest pitchers in the entire world. And they have not only an innate predisposition to be able to throw all of these pitches due to their elite athleticism and pitcher development, but they also have some of, if not the smartest baseball minds in their ears and at their disposal to use whenever they need to create something to shake a hitter off. But we here at Good Baseball have surmised that it is not statistically sensible to practice throwing more than what you need to throw in terms of your arsenal.